Welcome to the Cross the Line podcast. My name is Carlos Smith, and today's episode is sponsored by KB's Car Care on 321 North Main Street in Jonesville, South Carolina. They offer hand car wash, vacuum, and clean interior. Full detail is now available. While you wait on your vehicle, customer seating is available as well as a dining area. They're open Tuesday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., so make sure you stop by. Also, today's episode is sponsored by Charlene's Home Cooking on 1136 East Blackstock Road in Moore, South Carolina. Charlene's Home Cooking is a family restaurant that cooks like grandma with fresh veggies and meats cooked to order. You can do a meat with 2 sides, a meat with 3 sides, or a veggie plate along with sweet tea, Kool-Aid, and lemonade. Cakes, pies, and cobbler are also available for dessert. She wants you to feel at home anytime you visit, so stop by Monday, Thursday, and Saturday from 11 to 6, and Friday and Sunday from 11 to 7. Everything is fresh and from the heart, and she would love for you to visit. Also, I want to take this time to let everyone know that pre-orders for my new book, my first book actually, is available right now. The title of the book is called F School, Life is Your Best Teacher. I know that's kind of controversial, but I've been telling everybody about it, what it means. But you really have to read it to understand. But pre-orders are available right now. You can pre-order through my Cash App, which is carlosksmith.com. I'll make sure you put the $ on it, $carlosksmith.com, or through PayPal at carlossmith10@yahoo.com. The book will also be available on Amazon. Order your copy today, and thank you guys for all the love and support. Also, the official book signing will be March the 28th for the book release. So if anybody would love to come out, it's an open house, and make sure you stop by and pick your copy up. But today we have a very special guest with us today. She is an entrepreneur. She has an amazing story, very touching story. And I did a lot of research on it. Just saw the article like I was telling you. But she is the franchise owner of Floor Covers International here in the Upstate. Miss Janet Rosman, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Like I said, just to give people a little bit of the backstory. I was sitting at home, as I'm usually doing, just sending out emails, trying to set up interviews. And I think something happened where I was happening to be on Facebook at the time, and somebody shared your story. And so, of course, I always take the initiative to read, because I'm always reading something, just trying to figure out where we're going next for our interviews. So once I read your story, I was like, man, it'd be great if she would love to come on and share her story. I know it may be a little bit difficult with everything going on, but so I came out here. You weren't here at the time. I can't remember the young lady's name that was here, but she was very nice. And I gave her my information, said that she would love to come on. We would be happy to have her on so she could share her story. So thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So just reading your story, first thing I wanted to ask you through everything, just how are you feeling today?
Today, it changes from day to day, but today is good. We had a couple sales and the sun's shining, and I'm going to be out in the car moving around, meeting customers, so today's good. With my story, there are definitely days where are a little tougher than others, but for the most part, we're doing great.
Right. So if people watching this, if they don't know you and they say, who is Janet Rosman, what would you tell them?
I would say Janet Rosman is somebody that was blessed to be born in the Upstate. Mm-hmm. She was blessed to be able to meet her soulmate at the age of 16 and get married at 18. I was blessed to work hard and be blessed with some really good jobs, and was able to travel the world. And in doing that, realized that the Upstate I wouldn't live anywhere else but the Upstate.
Absolutely. I love the Upstate. I think I saw you went to Dorman.
I did.
That correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I had some family members that went to Dorman. My mom, she went to Spartanburg, so they always, during that football season, they go crazy. But was Dorman, I know I'm telling my age right now, is Dorman at the time, was it over at the where the Dorman Center is when you was there, or what was it?
When we laugh and say we went to school at the Walmart.
Walmart,
Yeah. I graduated in '89, so yes, I was there. I actually graduated the 25th anniversary of Dorman, which was a fun time. We buried a time capsule out front. So supposedly they dug it up before they built Walmart and moved to the new campus. Wow. But yeah,
it's just amazing to see how big the school has gotten since then. I'm like, man, that's almost like a college the way
Yeah.
it is. Well, I see people have T-shirts on sometimes that say Doman
University.
University. Yeah, it's a huge school.
It is.
But just talk about some of your previous work experience. Like, what was your work experience like leading up to this moment, to having your own business?
Well, growing up, I was the first person in my family to go to college. So I got married at 18, and my husband worked lots of overtime, and I worked part-time jobs to get through school. And my thought was, I'm going to get a degree in accounting because I can always find a job in accounting. That was my philosophy. So at the time, I went to Spartanburg Technical College and was pursuing an associate's degree in accounting, and I enjoyed that and was doing well at it. I got a part-time job working in accounting, and probably about a year in, I was like, I like this, but I don't think I can do this for the next 40 years of my life.
Right.
So at that time, talked to my husband, and I was like, I think I'm going to go on and get my 4-year degree and do something a little bit different. And so I transferred to USC Upstate with a focus in psychology. And the company I was working with kind of recognized that I was a good worker, and I knew the accounting side of things, but they actually created a marketing job for me. So I got paid to go shop and look for bad packaging. So they gave me an American Express card, and they said, go shop and bring back bad packaging. And then I would work with our art department to find ways to redesign it for either cost efficiencies for printing it on the press, because we were a package printer, or just aesthetics or strategy, what have you. And so we did that. And so that's really where I got my foot in with marketing and design. And from there, I moved into customer service. That was back in the days where just-in-time inventory became kind of the catchphrase. And so the company decided they really needed to do a better job at customer service. And so they asked me to jump to that side. I did, and was able to be a part of starting a new. I mean, we had customer service before, but it wasn't the way that we needed to have it. And so really was able to be a part of a great team to create a great customer service department. Definitely with customer as being our focus all the time, while at the same time making sure that we were, making money and being as efficient as we could. And then from there, I went into sales and was able to take over some of the accounts that I had been customer service for, primarily in the textile industry. So this was, late 90s, and textile industry was still very prevalent on the East Coast. So I traveled from Virginia to Georgia, selling package printing to textile mills.
So you have a lot of work experience, and almost like you just work with the public all the time. I was just wondering, just growing up, did you come from a family of entrepreneurs, or did your parents actually work like 9 to 5 pretty much?
A little of both. My mom was a bank teller for 40 years. She loved being a bank teller. I saw her, get up every morning and put her skirt and her hose and her high heels on and go wait on people at the bank. My dad was a bread man. And so for years he delivered Merita bread. And then I forget what age he was, but he did go out on his own and purchase a Pepperidge Farm franchise for him and my brother. So I had a little taste or a little glimpse of what that meant and the hard work that was behind it. But yeah, he bought a Pepperidge Farm franchise and grew it, and it supported him and my brother for many years. And then he added another route. Then he decided to retire, and so he started selling those off. And so I did see that piece of it. I guess way back in the days when I was young, we had a lot of land, and my dad farmed tomatoes. So our job in the summer was to pick tomatoes, shine them and box them, and then he would take them to the local grocery stores to sell them. And that was kind of our extra money that we got during the summer. So, that was a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit there, trying to find unique ways to earn money.
Did you ever think you would get to a point where you would come back around to entrepreneurship, just being around it, or did you pretty much have your mindset that you were gonna, of course, work for somewhere else, get that experience, and then come back around to it? Like, how was that for you? Did you?
I think I always just felt like with all of my family members, you started working somewhere, and that's where you stayed for lifetime.
Right.
So, I probably the most part of my brain just thought that I would always be working for someone, which I was completely fine with. You know, I enjoy being a part of a bigger group. I don't have trouble with authority figures telling me what I need to do. That's never been an issue. It just, you know, as you mature and age and as you gain new experiences, your philosophy and your perspective changes a little bit. And so I think that's kind of where I had just come to a crossroad of really asking myself, what did I really enjoy doing? And, you know, the answer that my husband and I kept talking about was I really enjoy helping support and build up other people, but I also really like getting dirty, like getting in the nitty gritty details of things and figuring out how things work. And trying to find out how you make them better. You know, it's one of those things. There's always the learning curve of, you know, I know what I need to do, so let me just get it done now and then start working in to make it efficient. And so, I guess probably early in 2019, I did a spiritual boot camp where was doing like lots of Bible reading and praying and journaling, just trying to uncover what it was that was next on my agenda, because I knew where I wasn't where I needed to be. I didn't know where I needed to be at the time. I just knew, you know, just had that stirring that there was something else out there for me. Right,
and that's why I saw. We talk about it all the time. You know, we're always thankful to have a job, but it's part of us that just feels like it's just something more that we can do, something more fulfilling that we can do. And like I said, I always love to, you know, help people and inspire others and have this platform to where we can hear so many different stories. And like you saying, I saw in Harold Journal where it said you were kind of like ready for a change, like it just something hit you where you're just ready for a change. What kind of different business ventures were you looking at when you were ready for your change?
Well, I had really just gotten through the point of what I wanted to do, and what I liked doing was starting things from scratch. That's what I had uncovered. And then I actually had a headhunter reach out to me in the first part of the summer in 2019 and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about owning your own business?" And I went, "Not really," you know, again, because you're just supposed to work for somebody else all your life, and I was okay with that, you know. And so anyway, I just continued to talk with him. He had many conference calls with me and my husband, just really asking me questions and asking us questions about what we like doing, you know, where, if we were going to do something on our own, what would it look like? And, you know, it was a very process-driven thing, which at first I was like, this is kind of weird, but now looking back, it was a very good process, because it really kind of took this whole big world that was open to me and helped me narrow it down just for me. So basically he brought back, after all those questions and all those hours on conference calls with my husband and him, he brought back 5 different opportunities for me. All of them were franchises. You know, one of them was a tutoring service, one of them was window cleaning, the floor covering business, and I honestly can't remember the other 2. But there were questions like, are you too proud to do anything? Which was, I thought, an odd question for him to ask, but in doing that, it was, are you okay cleaning windows? You know, would you be okay with that? I am. I'm okay. I don't know how good I'd be at it, but I'm not too proud to do it. So it was a very interesting process to walk through that, so that he could narrow down and go out and actually find some really good opportunities that fit, you know, where my interest lies.
I'm just wondering, like you say, kind of like we're just taught, you know, you work somewhere for like the next 30, 40 years until you retire. Do you think that's just a thing that we have down south, or you just think it's pretty much like all of society? Because sometimes when we go to different areas, I know when we go to Atlanta, sometimes we see a lot of entrepreneurs having their own opportunities. They network, they work with each other. One of the families we had on in Gastonia last year, Mr. Three's Crab Pot, the husband was from New York, and he said up there, you know, they were kind of like taught kind of like to have their own business a lot of times, and we were telling down here, we're just kind of like, we're in a sense like wired to kind of like go work for someone else for some type of reason. I know it's very, sometimes you do see people that have their own business, but a lot of times it's like, like around here, like if you go and work at Mission, one of these major corporations, do you think that's just like a thing that we have down here in our area?
I think some of it may be a regional type mentality, but also I think it's just what you're exposed to. I think it's, for you go back to the origins of the textile mills, which was the major manufacturing that was in the South, there wasn't a lot of options. But I think in other regards, like you think about farmers you've got farmers who are farming the land, but then they also may sell honey on the side, or like my dad, where he was a bread man and we farmed tomatoes, and it was, and so there was some semblance of that. I think some of it is just the having a great idea, and I think having the confidence to support that idea. Even as I was trying to think about what I wanted to do, my husband, he was addicted to Facebook Marketplace. So he was like, I'll give you a bay in my garage, I'll go buy this furniture and you refinish it and then resell it, which was a good idea. But that was like, that's like starting from scratch,
right.
I think the franchise, what it affords people, it's some of the basic business is already figured out for you. So you can really get in there. You kind of go into it with a little bit more confidence that you're not starting something from scratch. It is on you. It's on me to sell, and it's on me to produce good jobs, and it's on me to have good customer service. But there was some framework there. But I do think in the South, I think it's a little bit different, but I think the South is changing, and you're getting more influences from outside the region. And I think because of the growth that the South is seeing right now, there are more opportunities for entrepreneurs to come in and kind of create their own little niche for them.
Now, I do feel like we do see more of it now. Whether I see a lot of my friends on Facebook with hair, clothes, makeup, whatever it is that it did, even if they're just doing it on the side, I see a lot more of it now. But it seemed like growing up for us, and like even we said all the time, even in school, we didn't really learn about it, like being an entrepreneur. Like I saw it a little bit with my uncle, but I never really like paid attention to it that much. But like I said, we are starting to see more of it now than we did in the past. And I think the pandemic brought a lot of that out also, because when you see a lot of people losing their livelihoods, then it kind of forced them to, be creative and do other things that they haven't tried before. Maybe they wanted to try it in the past, but they didn't have the time to. So when the pandemic kind of slowed things down, they had a chance, to kind of start being creative again and try to figure out other ways to, create some income. And I think that's what it showed us also was, having multiple streams of income can be valuable as well.
Right, for sure. And I agree with you. I think, again, growing up, I remember when my dad said he was going to buy this Pepperidge Farm franchise, and we all were like, you're going to do what?
Right.
We knew he knew the business. That wasn't the question. It was just that was taking a leap of faith. So I do agree. And I also think just that today with the power of social media it gives you a much larger audience than we ever could have had, 20 years ago, which I do think has changed the landscape. I do think the COVID has kind of come home, and it's kind of like there's other ways to do this, and I think it's an exciting time. It's again being an entrepreneur is not for the faint at heart. It's they're hard days, but good.
Absolutely. So for you, when it was time to make that jump, when you made that transition, did you just quit your job and go cold turkey, or did you kind of like slowly make that transition to where you were trying to do both at the same time?
I went ahead and quit cold turkey. It was one of those things that it was kind of like when I met my husband. When I met him, I knew he was the person I was supposed to marry, so we got married. And I knew I had wrestled for probably a year and a half with what I needed to do, and I had finally came to the conclusion that I knew I didn't need to be where I was anymore. At that point, I was not sure whether or not I was going to buy the franchise. They had offered me the territory, but nothing had been signed, and I took probably 2 months to really kind of go, is this really, am I up for this? After my husband passed away and, was getting used to being a single mom of two great teenagers, but still, your whole world had been turned upside down. And I was like, I don't know that I have it in me. But part of it was he was convinced that this is what I needed to do, which gave me a little confidence, even beyond. And I'm a nerd and I love home improvement, and, I can only change the floors out at my house so often. So it was one of those of my daughter, she's 16. She looked at me, she says, "You're getting old. And if you're going to do it, you need to do it now." So I was like, okay, let's try this. And so that was that. But no, I went ahead and just quit cold turkey and said, I need to step back and really evaluate and see if this is what I need to do.
And you probably felt like a sigh of relief knowing that you just left and then knew that you were doing something for you. Were you nervous, or was it just like you just got this something off of your back and it was just like a big relief that knowing that you were doing something that you were ready to do on your own?
It was a little bit of sigh. It was just the fact that I had made a decision was the sigh of relief. It was definitely my job was very much part of my life, and the people that I helped that were on my team, they had kept me going for a long time just because I wanted to keep helping them. But then I realized I had reached the time to where it was time. It was time, and so it was a little bit of a relief.
I know 2019. I think you were getting ready to do the business, then the accident happened with your husband. Was that did he ever get an opportunity to kind of work with you on the business, or how was it, or was it just?
No, we actually, the day that he had his accident, we were going to Atlanta the next week for kind of our final interview. So again, with the company, it's very much a family-oriented company. So it was one of those things, we want you to come down with your husband. And it was a final interview before they offered the territory for sure. So we had taken a picture that morning at about 7:00 before we left to go to work. And I had to go I had my hair cut, and him and the kids were working in the yard. I was grabbing dinner and headed home, and I got the phone call that he had fallen. And I really I had forgot about us taking that picture that morning because he fell at about 7:00 that evening. So literally about 12 hours after we took the picture, and I had sent it off to the home office at FCI, that I was getting the call, and it was just a very surreal thing throughout the whole process.
That when you said it about taking that picture earlier that day, it kind of actually gave me like a flashback of what happened to my uncle back in November. I remember my brother posted on his work anniversary, and it was like his 7th year. He's moved up to a district manager at where he works at, and he posted a picture just like for a celebration of like his employees, his workers, had a cake for him and everything. And my uncle commented on it and said, "Congratulations, proud of you," something along those lines. And that was maybe like 9 or 10 o'clock that morning, and then maybe like 4 or 5 o'clock that day, my uncle passed away.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was just like, it was crazy because it just happened so quickly, like just like that. He had just come in, and I had just saw him. I said this in previous interviews. I actually saw him that Wednesday, and we went to Atlanta to shoot an interview that Thursday, and Friday is when he dropped dead, just like that. And it was just like, it just gave me like a flashback. But when you said it, it's like, it's crazy how things just happen like in a split of a second.
It does. And even like I go back to the night at the emergency room, I remember sitting there and just kind of, I felt like I was in a movie. Like, I don't know whether God was preparing me for the next couple months that we were facing, but it was just a real surreal situation, the whole piece of it. And then, I think now, I was able to spend, he fell on September 18th and didn't pass away until November 16th. So I got to spend every day with him. I'd get to the ICU at 8:00 in the morning, and, they'd make me leave at lunchtime, and then I'd spend the afternoon with him. And he was on a ventilator and couldn't talk, but he did a lot of talking with his eyes. We knew what he was thinking by his eyes. So even just a few days before he passed away, I remember I was working at the end of his bed, and I was working on work, and I was kind of talking, and every time I'd look up, he was staring at me, and I'm like, why are you staring at me? And he would just kind of shake his head like, nothing, no reason. And I would tell him, oh, I'm working on this, or I'm working on this. And I remember looking at him, and I said, I think it's time for me to be done. in referring to my job, and he looked at me and he just closed his eyes and shook his head up and down. So even, that was on a Thursday. He passed away on a Saturday. I mean, it was time.
Right.
It was time, and so that was, hindsight. I wish God would have left him here so
Right.
we could be doing this together. But for whatever reason, I trust His sovereignty, and we're gonna do what we can. And
Yes, ma'am. I saw you said something about he had self-confidence in you, something that you didn't see in yourself. What was it that you felt like he saw in you? Because you said he really did believe in you. He was like your biggest cheerleader. What do you think he was that he saw in you?
we just always clicked, and he loved me, and he believed I could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And
You got some tissue?
here I go. And I think that's something that, part of it, I know, not part of it. Part of it was that he loved me, and that we grew up together. So we had done some crazy, impossible things together. We built a house together, and we raised kids together, and I don't know. He just always had a lot more confidence in me and my abilities than many times I had in myself. And I'm a confident person, but there's always that, should I do this or should I do that? And, he was my sounding board, so I could come home and say, I'm thinking about this, and what do you think? And that's kind of how we got on the subject of, I remember he was standing at the sink, and I'm like, I think it's time. I think it's time for me to move on. I just got to figure out what that is. And I remember him looking at me. He said, well, you can do anything you want to. And I'm like, no, I can't. And he's like, yes, you can. So he definitely, and I think that's hopefully in any good marriage, you've got that. But we always tried to support each other and build each other up. And he definitely always had more confidence in me.
I know you said at his funeral, you said like over 1,000 people showed up. What did that mean to you to see so many people show up at his funeral?
I had no idea that many people would show up. I mean, I knew he was a good guy, and I knew he had a lot of connections because he'd been at BMW for 25 years. Mm-hmm. He was in one of the first groups hired, and so he knew lots of people. I think a coworker had started the Caring Bridge site for me, and I was a little bit hesitant at first, but everybody was just bummed. They were wanting to know what was going on with him. My work people, family, his work people, and the Caring Bridge site just became something that was an outlet so that I could keep everybody up to date. And so I do think all that kind of played into that, but I think, Lawrence was the guy who wanted to make everybody laugh. He could be crude at times, but he was the one that somebody told me, they were like, if I needed to sit down and plan something, Lawrence wasn't the one that I would call. But if there was a catastrophe going on, he was the first one that I called. He worked great under pressure, and he would most of the time like somehow try to bring some comedy or laughter to it. Right. And he would tell me, I don't like people, but he really did love people. Mm-hmm. And you can find anybody that worked for him or worked with him. They may not always agree on things, but he never would ask you to do something that he wasn't willing to do himself. And mm-hmm. In the beginning, he knew every station at BMW. He would work them, and that earned respect for him as a manager at BMW. That he would get in there and he knew it, and he'd listen to people. I've had stories where, they were guys that had going through divorces or had lost children, and they'd be in just dark places, and they would call Lawrence, and he would help talk them out of it and give them a different perspective. But he was a very non-assuming guy. Like, what you saw was what you saw. There was mm-hmm. no put on about him. And I think people gravitate to that, and they recognize that. So yes, we had no idea that many people would show up. And I think my niece, who is a writer, summed it up pretty well. that, and I won't say it just like she said it, he wasn't this guy that did grand gestures of kindness. He just did small things every day for everybody that he came in contact with.
Absolutely.
Which is one of those things of if everybody did the small kind gestures every day to build up people, I mean, what kind of world would we be in?
Yeah, so a much better place.
Yeah.
And like I said, people always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
Like no matter what, they're always going to make you remember how you made them feel. So that's definitely a true testament to him and the man that he was. How do your kids handle the death of their father, especially at such a young age? How are they handling now?
We're all good. They as far as school grades and, you know, us deciding who's taking out the trash and who's cutting the grass, we're getting all that. Again, they love their dad, and my daughter is much like her dad. She misses him, and she loves talking about him and the funny things that he used to do and sing. He was always singing. But she misses him, and she was a daddy's girl. My son, he's often said, they both had to grow up way too fast, but the one thing I think the most mature thing I heard him say was, he sat down one day and he's got a small group of friends that they've been friends with forever, and he says, you know, he said, I'm pretty lucky. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, I had a good dad. I had a good dad that showed me how to change the oil and taught me how to ride a bike. And he says, a lot of my friends, they don't have a dad at all. And he said, I just wish I had appreciated him more while he was here. So I think that we all recognize that he was a big, powerful presence in our life. And he's impacted us, and he's helped us, and he still helps us. I mean, I was on an install today, and a red bird flew by. And I'm a firm believer that a red bird is him. Every morning when I open my blinds in my bedroom, there's a red bird sitting out on the fence. So I know he's still with us, and he's still supporting us. But they, you know, again, we all have hard days, but for the most part, we're doing okay. His big thing was, if something didn't go like we wanted, and I'd come home and I'd be, you know, dang about something, he was like, just turn the page. If something didn't turn out like you want it, just turn the page and start over. So we all three know very much so that that's what he would be telling us right now, is turn the page. He would want us all to be happy, and so that's what we strive to do.
I know you were saying you kind of wish, of course, I know all of you wish you were still here. Did you ever have a point where you ever had like a moment where you kind of question your faith, like, why did this happen to you and your family? Did you ever have any of those type of moments?
I've questioned, yes and no. I've questioned in the fact of why us. What I have not done is I trust the sovereignty of the Lord. And, you know, I think I even go back to the fact that I was doing my spiritual boot camp at the first part of 2019. I think all of that was a part of, I've always had a strong faith. Don't always live and do what I'm supposed to do, but as far as faith in God and faith in what he can do, that's never been a question. So I think my big question right now is, God's taken us through this journey, and what am I supposed to do with it?
Right.
How am I supposed to use it? I had a church family member that lost their daughter in a horrific car wreck, and so we had gathered up stuff, and I took it to her house, and I'll never forget, she looked at me and she goes, Janet, I feel very blessed that God's called me to walk this road. And my kids were little at the time, and I remember going home and I looked at Lawrence and I was like, I don't understand what she's saying. She's just lost her daughter. Why is she saying that? And it became very apparent to me what she meant after we went through all that we went through. It's God's put us this adversity in our life, and I know something good's going to come out of it. And so I guess what I question is my ability to be faithful and walk in that.
Right. And I know it's crazy if you don't want this to happen. But like you say, you went through a spiritual boot camp, and then leading up to it, your husband passed away. How do you stay strong in times like this? Because I also think about my cousin, her son. Well, he was actually my second cousin. He had just graduated a few years ago. He had graduated in May, and I think that September, October, he was gunned down. He was killed. And my cousin, I mean, she's trying to stay strong, but you can, of course, she lost her baby, so she's
Right.
still hurt. And it's just like you can kind of tell she's not the same.
Yeah.
Of course, when you lose a family, you're not gonna be the same. Nothing's gonna be the same. You kind of have to just learn how to deal with it. Like you'll never get over it,
Right.
in a sense. But like, how do you stay strong in times like this now? Because it's still fresh. Because this was what, a little bit over a year since this happened.
Yeah. I think it's, some days I'm not strong. Some days it's real hard to get out of bed. Some days it's, we just closed out his estate last week, and I didn't think anything of it, and it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I think the strength comes from knowing and trusting that God's put us here for a very specific purpose. And so my strength comes from Him when I allow Him to be my strength, which is part of my problem, is thinking I can do it all on my own, and I can't do it on my own. And I know that in my head, but some days I get up and feeling a little bit cocky and think I can. And it's definitely, I think it goes back to, my word of the year in 2019 was perspective. And I think it goes back to perspective. It's, even with this business, I love my customers. I love their stories, and I love getting to know them. And so I try to focus on that. So I'm focusing on them and not on me. The minute that I start focusing on me is when I start losing my strength.
Right.
So when I focus on the Lord, and I focus on my kids, and I focus on my customers, that really is what fuels me to keep going. And the perspective is to know that there's going to be some hard days. There's going to be some hard days, and that's okay. And there's going to be days where I mess up, and but that's,
we all have those
we
days.
all have those days. And I think that's the perspective of, is have those days, acknowledge them, learn from them, and then getting up the next day and trying it all over again.
Is there anything you would say you find out about yourself, like the resiliency or anything since losing your husband that you may not have seen before while he was alive? Do you feel like it's anything you may have found out about yourself?
I don't know that I think I knew this about myself, but how I allow myself to get caught up in the details that don't go right instead of focusing on all the things that do go right. I think he would fuss at me, if I was in one of those times where I was focusing in on what didn't go right. He would go, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about that? So I think since he's been gone, I try to check myself, so to speak, to go, am I getting caught up in this detail that really doesn't matter? It may seem like a big deal right at this moment, but does this really matter in the scheme of things? I think the one thing that one of my biggest learning is to not let the world steal my joy. And I think that was one of those things and I think that was part of my journey of going through everything. I was so focused on me, I was missing the joy, and so that was one of those promises after, you see life, how short it is and how quick it can be taken from you, is to enjoy the little things and keep perspective, keep a wide perspective on life.
Absolutely. Like sometimes we can take, not saying you did, but a lot of times we can take those things for granted, and we don't really know how good we had it or how much we missed something until it's actually gone.
Exactly.
What would you say is your fondest memory of your husband while he was alive?
I don't know. There's a lot of them. The fact that he loved to make people laugh. He enjoyed that. I think my fondest memory is just he loved me through and through. He loved me big, and did from day one. And he got me. He understood how my brain worked. But yeah, he was the one that helped me not take life so serious.
What would you tell people that may have lost a loved one? I know you're still going through it. and it's like we said, it's still fairly new. But if you could tell somebody who's lost a loved one, of course, a lot of people have lost family members due to the pandemic and everything that's going on. But what would you tell someone who's lost a loved one? What kind of words of comfort could you give them?
I think they've just got to, one piece that I have is when Lawrence left here, he had a smile on his face. And I know he's in heaven. I believe that completely, that he's in heaven. So hopefully the situation is a family member knows that their lost family member is in heaven, and that it's that almost a relief of they're not hurting anymore, they're not suffering anymore, they're in heaven, and that brings a lot of comfort. For those of us who have family members, and we all do, who, if they were to die today, they weren't going to go to heaven, I think those are the ones where you've got to pray and pray that they accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior. So when they do die, they go to heaven. And so I think maybe I have a unique situation because I've got that. I know that that's where he's at. So that does bring very much comfort to me and what we do.
Just a few more questions, and then we'll get ready to wrap it up. Do you have anything? Of course, you guys were married 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Had a lot of great memories. Is there anything that you wish you guys could have done together, or do you feel like we made the best of our time while he was here?
For the most part, we made the best of our time. Doing fun things and just trying to enjoy life. And one of our crazy things that we would do is once a season, in the fall and the winter, we would take the kids to a fancy hotel and a fancy restaurant. We would just stay one night. We'd kind of blow the budget one night and just expose them to that. And part of that was because he and I didn't get to do that when we were younger. Once we started traveling, we were exposed to some of that. So we just wanted to expose them to other ways of living. So that was a fun thing that we would do. Many nights we would just get in the car and we'd just ride. We would just ride. No destination in sight, just ride and see what we could see.
How did COVID impact you from the standpoint of like of businesses and also like personally, because when COVID hit, it was kind of like social distance. You can't go see some of your family members, and with you losing your husband, that may be a time where you really needed to be around family. So how did COVID impact all of that for you?
It actually was a really sweet time for me and Lawson and Olivia, primarily because we were at home together, just learning how to do life. So it actually was a blessing to us because we didn't have all the outside world coming in and not that the outside world gives you pressure in that, but it's more about just healing. And so we really just got to work through things on our own a little bit, which was a safe place for us. It was a safe place at home, and the first time you see family and the first time that you go to church after losing a loved one like that, it's like you feel like everybody's looking at you, and they may, whether they are or whether they're not, it's just you just feel a little raw. And so COVID actually allowed us time just to heal a little bit without having to feel that pressure.
Does it help you? I guess I know it's sad. It's very touching, but does it help you a little bit to when you talk about your husband, or is it hard to still kind of share some of these things at times?
I think when we talk about some of the crazy things that he would do and the crazy songs that he would make up, and those are fun, and we laugh about those. I think it gets hard for me, when you start thinking about the kids getting married or having their first babies, or when I sit back and I think about how much he loved me, and I knew that he did when he was here. That wasn't something that I just figured out after he passed away. I think that's the hard part of of talking about it and missing that connection, missing that foundation.
Mm-hmm. My final two questions: if you had that one chance where you could talk to him again, what would you say to him?
I'm telling him thank you. You know, I look around and there's so many people who never get to experience that kind of love. Mm-hmm. And so I feel blessed that I had him in my life for 32 years and that he loved me. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And my final question, first of all, I want to thank you again because I know this is tough, but I really appreciate hearing your story. I know it's very touching. A lot of people will hear the story and be inspired. They'll love it because there's so many people that's going through things that we may not even know about. So we always tell people, I always treat people with respect because you never know what they're going through. And just speaking to them or just any kind of words of encouragement could just make their day. So I know a lot of people hearing this will definitely appreciate you sharing that story because we all need this to kind of get through these difficult times. And like I said, we know everybody has a day where they're going to leave this earth. We just don't know when it's going to happen right. and then how it's going to happen. It's just so unfortunate. So you just have to be thankful for the people that are in your life all the time. I know sometimes you may get frustrated with them and get upset, but you just have to really value and cherish those people. And now even as men, a lot of times I know sometimes we try to be strong, but now we get to a point now where my brother, my friends, and my cousins, I always tell them, man, well, I love you, I appreciate you, because you never know if that's going to be your last time seeing them. So I always tell your loved ones that you love them. But my final question, I know you didn't really want to talk too much about your business, but your journey is just definitely dignifies this final question is, and we ask everybody this question, what does self-investment mean to you?
That's a big question. Self-investment to me it means a lot of different things, a lot of different levels. I think self-investment is surrounding yourself with great people who can help support you. Self-investment is always be learning something in whatever way that is. If you're not a reader, then listen to a podcast. If you're not a podcast, then read. If you don't like either of those and you like talking, find a great mentor that can mentor you. I think self-investment is also it's going back to that perspective, not being too hard on yourself when you do have a bad day or you do make a mistake. But I think the big thing is self-investment is just appreciating whatever journey God's put you on and knowing that there's a plan for it. You may not understand it. You may not like it. I don't like that he's not here with me anymore. But I've been given a path, and I think it's my duty for not just me and my family, but to walk it in a way that I should. Absolutely.
Well, Ms. Rosman, I really want to thank you again for sharing the story. I didn't really mean to make you shed so many tears.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't think I was, but hey.
But it's definitely something, like I said, we definitely need to hear. Everybody needs to hear because, like you said, everybody's going through something. We've all lost somebody near and dear to us. Me personally, I definitely, like I said, I lost my uncle, my cousin. I lost my grandmother at an early age. I think I actually wrote about it in my book, and it was kind of like, for me, I actually called it, the chapter in my book is called The Right Mistake, and it's because just, I love my grandmother, but at times I feel like I didn't really appreciate her like I should have while she was here. So that's why I call it a right mistake, because now if I could go back, I would right that wrong that I had. But I definitely, like I'll tell anybody, definitely cherish and appreciate your loved ones. Before we get out of here, I will let you, one more bit of advice you have for people watching this that's going through these tough moments. Like, what advice would you have for them?
Don't stop. Don't stop. Take the next step. It might be a baby step. It might be a big giant step, but don't stop. If you're in the valley, don't stay in the valley. You may be in the valley for a little while, but you just don't stop.
Absolutely. And I also want to let you, I know you didn't really want to, but we want to let you go ahead and let everyone know how they can find your business, because it's definitely we definitely love to promote businesses, support each. We always have to support each other. So also, if you could tell everyone how they can find you in your business.
Sure. It's Floor Coverings International of the Upstate. You can find me on the web. It's upstatesc.floorcoveringsinternational.com. You also can find me on Facebook, which is FCI Upstate, or on Instagram.
Absolutely. So, Ms. Rosman, I want to thank you again. I really appreciate your story. Hopefully, everyone here that's tuned into this episode, you guys enjoyed this episode. Hopefully, you learned something and definitely value and appreciate your loved ones while they're here. So, until next time, keep chasing your dreams. This is the Cross the Line Podcast. Thank you for listening.
Hey, this is Janet Rosman with Floor Coverings International, and I'm tuned in to Cross the Line Podcast.